We have an incredibly practical mission for today's deep dive.
We really do. It's a big one.
Yeah, we are looking at, what it takes to break through a linguistic plateau, specifically to achieve C1 level English precision.
Right.
And we're applying this to the high-stakes world of navigating the healthcare system.
Which is stressful enough in your native language, honestly.
Oh, absolutely. So our sources for this include Cambridge English Standards, advanced linguistics guides, and some truly fascinating neuroscience papers on cognitive load.
Yeah, the neuroscience stuff is, it's mind-blowing.
It really is. The goal here is to take you, the listener, from merely getting by to commanding a room, advocating for your health and sounding like the informed professional you actually are.
It's such an essential shift to make because when you are operating at an intermediate level, say a B2 level, your entire cognitive focus is purely on survival.
Mm-hmm.
You just want the person across from you to understand your basic point.
Just to get the words out.
Exactly. But C1, on the other hand, is about the precision of expression. It's finding the exact word needed to control the tone, set boundaries, and really guide a professional interaction.
Right. And to set the stage for why this is so critical, let's look at a scenario that almost everyone who has ever learned a second language has faced.
Oh, the intermediate frustration.
Yes, the intermediate frustration. It's so real. Imagine you are sitting in a doctor's office. Or maybe you're on a really frustrating phone call with your HR department.
Trying to untangle a health insurance claim, usually.
Yeah, exactly. And in your native language, in your head, you possess this beautifully complex, nuanced explanation of your symptoms or the logistical nightmare you are facing.
You know every single detail of what you want to communicate.
But then you open your mouth and you regress.
Yeah.
Out loud, the words that come out are, I have a big problem, or my back hurts a lot.
Right. Which, you get the point across, sure. The doctor knows your back hurts.
But it feels painfully simplistic. It doesn't reflect your actual intelligence.
Definitely.
Usually when we talk about a medical diagnosis, there is an expectation of engineering-like precision. You break your arm, the x-ray shows the jagged white line, and the doctor points to it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you are navigating healthcare in a second language, that x-ray machine is broken.
That's a great way to put it.
You're trying to describe a complex internal landscape using, blunt instruments.
And that gap between your internal intelligence and your external output, that is where the power dynamics of healthcare really start to work against you.
Wow, yeah, power dynamics.
Yeah, because to escape that intermediate frustration, we have to unpack the mechanics of what the sources call the C1 shift.
Okay, let's get into that.
A crucial insight from our linguistic sources, particularly the analyses of advanced language patterns, is that this shift isn't about memorizing a dictionary of massive, obscure words.
Right, it's not about swallowing a thesaurus.
No, not at all. It is fundamentally about mastering flexibility.
Well,
it is about controlling register.
Register. Okay, so register is a term thrown around a lot in linguistics. But for you, the listener sitting in a waiting room, what does it practically change?
Well, the sources highlight that intermediate learners tend to use the exact same language patterns regardless of context.
Okay.
So a B2 speaker will say, this is important, to their spouse at dinner, to their friends at a bar, and to a board of directors during a financial crisis.
It's a one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly. But a C1 speaker dynamically adjusts that register. Depending on the audience, they shift.
Right.
They might say, this plays a crucial role in our strategy, or this is a significant factor, or this has considerable implications.
Let me challenge that slightly, though.
Go for it.
Because I can hear someone thinking, if I walk into a clinic throwing around phrases like significant challenge or crucial role, aren't I risking sounding overly academic?
Yeah.
Or worse, like a hypochondriac who spent too much time reading medical journals on the internet. If my arm hurts, why not just say, my arm hurts?
That is a very natural hesitation. But it completely ignores the sociology of a medical setting.
How so?
The linguistics research points out that professional language is a signaling mechanism. Using a precise register isn't about sounding snobby.
Right.
It is about establishing yourself as an informed partner. Medical professionals are constantly triaging patients, not just medically, but conversationally.
Wow. Conversationally triaging.
Yes. When you use precise register, you signal that you understand the gravity of the situation. You force the professional to elevate their response to meet your level.
You are demanding to be taken seriously by speaking their native professional language.
Exactly. And we see this vividly in the verbs we choose.
Oh, like what?
Well, the advanced tutorials we looked at spend a lot of time on the distinction between the verbs use and employ.
Use and employ, okay.
An intermediate learner treats these as identical synonyms.
Right, they mean basically the same thing in a dictionary.
But in a clinical or professional setting, they carry entirely different psychological weights.
Interesting.
Use a toothbrush. You use a pen, but you employ a strategy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a business employs a targeted chatbot.
Oh, I see the subtle difference there. So applying that to our health context, you wouldn't say, I use a coping mechanism for my stress.
No.
You would say, I employ a coping mechanism.
Exactly.
It shifts you from being a passive consumer of a tool to an active manager of your condition.
And that tiny verbal shift changes the doctor's perception of you. You aren't just a passive vehicle waiting for a mechanic.
Right.
You are actively trying to solve the problem alongside them.
Which brings us perfectly to specific medical self-advocacy. If we take the C1 mindset, this idea that vocabulary dictates the power dynamic, and we look at the actual Cambridge reference materials, there are incredible upgrades that transform basic descriptions into accurate clinical communication.
Let's analyze a few of these transitions.
Yeah, let's do it.
At the B2 level, a patient might walk in and say, I have a big problem.
Right.
The C1 upgrade is to state that you are facing a significant challenge.
It sets a completely different tone. Big problem sounds like a complaint, you know?
Exactly.
Significant challenge sounds like an obstacle that you are ready to tackle.
Then there is the issue of lifestyle. A basic speaker dealing with back pain might tell the doctor, I think I'm sitting too much.
Which is so vague.
It's incredibly vague. The C1 speaker uses the specific clinical benchmark. They say, I am concerned about my sedentary lifestyle.
Let's pause on that one because sedentary lifestyle is such a powerful phrase.
It really is.
It proves you understand that your behavior falls into a recognized medical category. You aren't just a guy who likes his couch, you know. You are a patient analyzing your environmental risk factors.
Precisely.
What about when we talk about the actual treatment? Because the default is usually just asking the doctor, can you make the pain better?
The C1 linguistic upgrade is to ask how to alleviate symptoms.
Alleviate symptoms. Science.
Yes, but a truly advanced speaker pairs that with a demand for deeper investigation. They insist that the doctor take into account the underlying condition.
Okay, take into account.
Yes. So instead of pointing to a hidden problem, you ask the doctor to find the root cause, the underlying condition, while simultaneously working to alleviate the immediate symptoms.
You know, using B2 English at the doctor is like taking your car to the mechanic, pointing to the engine and saying, the shiny bit is loud.
Yes, that is exactly what it's like.
And the mechanic now has to do all the diagnostic heavy lifting to figure out what you mean. They have to guess.
Which takes time and leaves room for error.
Right. But C1 English is knowing how to point directly to the engine and say, I think the alternator is failing.
Exactly.
It accelerates the timeline of your care because you are handing them the exact diagnostic anchor they need.
And the Cambridge Vocabulary Packs offer several other precise anchors.
Like what else?
Well, moving beyond tired to describe exhaustion, identifying a rash as contagious rather than catchy.
Oh, catchy. Yeah, contagious is much better.
Or noting that your family history makes you prone to a specific illness rather than just saying, we get it a lot.
Wow, yeah. Prone to. Each of these terms narrows the doctor's focus, eliminating guesswork.
Absolutely.
So we have the clinical side handled, but getting the doctor to listen to you is honestly only half the battle.
Oh, for sure.
Curing the body is one thing, but surviving the institutional bureaucracy is another entirely.
It's a whole different beast.
Managing health means dealing with insurance claims, fighting with HR over coverage, filling out endless appeals.
And navigating that bureaucracy, which, by the way, navigating the complexities is a stellar C1 phrase.
Oh, navigating the complexities. I like that.
Yeah, it requires structural language.
Yeah.
You aren't just describing a pain in your knee anymore. You are building a logical argument for why an insurance company should pay for an MRI.
Right.
This is where advanced cohesive devices come into play.
Cohesive devices being the words that glue our sentences together, right?
Exactly.
At an intermediate level, we rely heavily on high-frequency connectors. Everything is glued together with and, but, and because.
And stringing together a formal insurance appeal with and but strips your argument of professional authority.
It sounds amateurish.
It does. When we examine the advanced guidelines for structuring professional arguments, the focus shifts to words that signal logical progression.
Give me some examples.
Terms like furthermore and moreover Tell the reader that you are presenting a structured, compounding list of evidence.
I notice the sources also highlight reference pronouns, specifically the former and the latter, which I find fascinating because they feel so formal, almost literary.
They do feel literary, but in a logistical email to HR, they're incredibly efficient.
How so?
They reduce friction for the reader. If you are comparing two healthcare plans in an email, you might write, we have two options, employer-provided plans and private insurance. The former is subsidized, while the latter offers broader specialist access.
Oh, that's a remarkably clean structure.
Isn't it?
The former points back to the first item, the employer plan. The latter points to the second, the private insurance.
Exactly. You avoid the clunky repetition of constantly retyping the plan names.
Which makes your email read like it was drafted by an executive, not someone struggling with the language.
Yes. The same principle applies to how we express causality.
Okay, causality, like cause and effect.
Right. In informal spoken English, we lean entirely on the word because. But professional negotiation requires a shift toward prepositions like owing to or due to.
Ah, okay.
Instead of telling HR, I need an extension on my claim because I had a leg injury, the C1 speaker writes, I require an extension owing to a leg injury.
It creates a subtle distance. It feels more objective.
It does.
But let's look at the financial vocabulary, because the cost of healthcare is usually the biggest logistical hurdle.
Oh, without a doubt.
How do we negotiate price without sounding like we're just complaining that something is too expensive?
The linguistic sources provide a brilliant tool for this. The term cost prohibitive.
Cost prohibitive.
An intermediate learner says, this therapy costs too much. A C1 speaker says, this therapy is cost prohibitive.
I want to dig into the mechanics of that word because cost prohibitive is fundamentally a boundary setting tool.
Yes, exactly.
If you tell an insurance adjuster, this is too expensive, you are expressing a personal feeling about your budget.
Right, and the adjuster's internal reaction is, well, that's your personal financial problem.
Exactly. But when you say the premium is cost prohibitive, you are stating an objective structural fact.
You're saying the cost literally prevents access.
It shifts the burden of problem solving back onto the provider.
You're framing the price as a systemic failure, not a personal failing.
Wow, that's powerful.
And if you need to define that cost precisely, you upgrade from saying it is more than $400 to stating the cost is in excess of $400, rendering the treatment cost prohibitive.
In excess of.
You are boxing them in with professional logic.
But fighting that bureaucracy, deploying phrases like cost prohibitive and owing to, it takes massive mental energy.
Exhausting amounts of energy.
Which raises a huge question. Why is it so exhausting to pull these words out during a medical crisis?
That is the million-dollar question.
Because it is one thing for us to sit here calmly analyzing vocabulary. It is another to be in a hospital waiting room, staring at a bill in excess of $400 with adrenaline pumping.
Absolutely.
This brings us to the neuroscience research in our source stack and how this linguistic shift actually physically alters your brain.
The intersection of linguistics and cognitive load is easily the most compelling part of this deep dive.
I agree, it's fascinating.
The research explores what happens to your decision-making capacity during a medical crisis. When you are overwhelmed by symptoms or terrified of a diagnosis, the problem loops in your head as a dense, abstract fear.
Like an emotional fog.
Exactly. And neurologically, that emotional fog is being processed by your amygdala.
The amygdala, our primal evolutionary fear center.
Right. As long as the problem remains a vague, poorly articulated fear, thoughts like, I have a big problem or I don't know what to do, the amygdala remains in the driver's seat. You stay locked in a state of panic or decision paralysis.
The amygdala treats the medical issue like a blaring fire alarm. It's just deafening noise and flashing lights. There's no nuance.
But here's the mechanism of precise language. When you force yourself to use C1 level vocabulary, something profound happens.
What happened?
When you deliberately articulate the specific multifaceted issues, when you break down the cost-prohibitive nature of the insurance, and especially when you physically write these terms down, you transform the emotional fog into hard data.
You're turning the fire alarm into a diagnostic dashboard.
That is the perfect way to conceptualize it. The act of searching for and deploying precise terminology physically forces the processing of that problem out of the fear-based amygdala and into the prefrontal cortex.
The prefrontal cortex being the logical, executive functioning part of our brain.
Ex-
It can't fix a blaring fire alarm, but it absolutely knows how to read a diagnostic dashboard.
Right.
It can look at the isolated gauges, the underlying condition, the sedentary lifestyle, the cost-prohibitive therapies, and start formulating a plan.
The sources note that by defining an issue with high precision, it ceases to be an overwhelming feeling and becomes a math problem you can actually solve.
That's incredible.
But as you mentioned, doing this under pressure is incredibly difficult.
Yeah, it's so hard.
That is why the linguistic tutorials advocate for a specific training technique called shadowing.
Shadowing, actively training the physical muscles of speech.
Right, because you cannot rely on reading a vocabulary list once and expecting the words to be there when the adrenaline hits.
It's just not going to happen.
No. Shadowing involves listening to C1 medical dialogues, pausing, and repeating the complex sentence structures out loud.
Okay, so you match the rhythm, the intonation, and the pacing.
Exactly. You have to physically practice putting phrases like alleviate symptoms and navigate the complexities into your mouth until they form muscle memory.
So by the time you are sitting across from the doctor, those words need to bypass the amygdala entirely.
They need to be reflexes.
Language really is the operating system we use to communicate with ourselves, isn't it?
It truly is.
When you upgrade that system from B2 to C1, you aren't just sounding smarter to the HR rep. You are upgrading your own brain's capacity to process complex, stressful data.
You move from the chaos of the amygdala to the clarity of the prefrontal cortex.
So let's look back at the map of what we've covered today.
It's been quite a journey.
We started in the thick of the intermediate frustration where your sophisticated thoughts are trapped behind basic vocabulary.
Right.
We analyzed the mechanics of the C1 shift, discovering that true fluency is about mastering register and flexibility, understanding the psychological difference between using a tool and employing a strategy.
And from there, we armed you with specific medical self-advocacy tools. We moved past complaining about sitting too much to discussing a sedentary lifestyle.
Yes, and we learned to instruct the doctor to investigate the underlying condition rather than just asking them to make a hidden problem go away.
Then we took on the institutional bureaucracy.
We structured our arguments with cohesive devices like furthermore and the former, and we deployed advanced vocabulary like cost prohibitive to set firm, logical boundaries with insurance providers.
And finally, we uncovered the neurological mechanism behind it all. The reality that precise language acts as a cognitive override.
Pulling your crisis response out of the panic of the amygdala and into the logical problem-solving space of the prefrontal cortex.
It is a phenomenal reminder that learning a language isn't just about passing a Cambridge exam.
No, not at all.
It is about taking back control of your circumstances.
But as we finish up this deep dive, there is a final provocative thought buried in the implications of this research that I want you, the listener, to mull over.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot.
We've established that mastering a second language at the C1 level fundamentally changes how your brain processes fear and logic during a medical crisis. It turns the noise of a fire alarm into readable data.
Right.
So the question becomes, could deliberately auditing and upgrading your vocabulary in your native language also be a secret key to lowering your everyday anxiety?
Wow. That's a huge thought.
Right. If precision turns fear into data, how much of our daily low-level stress is simply a result of lacking the right words to describe our own internal landscape?
That's incredibly profound.
Something to think about the next time you feel the panic rising, whether you're speaking English or your mother tongue. Remember, you do not have to just point at the engine and complain that the shiny bit is loud.
No, you don't.
You have the diagnostic tools to name the problem. Name it, clear the fog, and take back your power. Until next time.